Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Elevenses with the Reps at Diesel Bookstore. We are very happy to see you and see our wonderful publishing professionals here today who are going to tell you, as they do every week on Wednesday at 11, about their recommendations for new and upcoming and recently released titles that they want you to know about that you might not know about, in fact. And they are the experts. And after they finish telling you about these wonderful books, you will add them to your to be read pile. And if you don't already have them, no, you don't already have them. You're going to add them. You're going to add them today. And we have fun and we talk about all of the books and we go down rabbit holes and all things literary. And it's a very comforting, warm, and safe book space here. And so we thank you all for joining us. I am going to introduce the two fabulous publishers reps we have with us today talking books. But before I do anything else, I do want to tell you about some events coming up at the store at Diesel, because we're just rolling. No, we're blazing into summer here with all kinds of amazing events. And starting tonight, in fact, we have at 6:30 p.m. Philippa Malicka will be discussing and signing In Her Defense. That's going to be 6:30 tonight at the store at Diesel. And joining her in conversation will be Crystal Smith-Paul. So they're going to be there reading, discussing, and signing In Her Defense. That is tonight. And then tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m., we will have Jane Garnett. She'll be discussing and signing, this time with feeling. And joining her in conversation will be Dr. Theodora Harvey, PhD, sex and relationship therapist. So that's tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. at the store. And then, oh yeah, there's more. Sunday, that is going to be May 31st, last day of May, Sunday at 3 p.m. Annabel Monaghan will be discussing and signing Dolly All the Time. And joining her in conversation will be Maureen Gu, and that is going to be on Sunday at 3 p.m. And then going a little bit further into the following week, because I want to make sure that you know that we will be having our special author interview with Lisa C. next Wednesday at 11. So you don't want to miss that. That is going to be That's going to be a good one. That's going to be fun. So join in for that. I'll remind you again. And then the next day, which is June 4th on Thursday at 6:30 p.m., we are going to have 5 of our fantastic publishers reps, and it's going to be Rep Night Summer Picks. So you can come and see these guys in person with their books and treats, giveaways, raffle prizes. This is really going to be a lot of fun. And that's Summer Reads, and that's happening next Thursday, June 4th at 6:30 p.m. Okay, now I have completed the announcements, and I want to tell you who's here today. We have Tom Benton from Penguin, and we have Joe Murphy from W.W. Norton. Only 2 of them today, but you know what? These are the heavy hitters. Who needs more when you have Tom and Joe with you? So let us get to it right now. Joe, lead us off.
Okay, I'm going to start with fiction today and then move into lots of history after that. This is an upcoming book in July that I just absolutely loved. It's called Astronaut, and it's by Aristide. And it is set in Romania during the last year of Nicolae Ceausescu's reign. And basically the plot follows 2 different plot lines. It goes back and forth between them. The first is about this very bright and outspoken and intelligent little girl going to school under the regime, and her parents are trying to sort of squash this streak of originality and intelligence, because if she speaks out of turn in school, the teacher might report her to the regime. Her parents might go to a prison camp. Who knows? Because it is very much a totalitarian regime. So that's one plot line. The other is almost like a police procedural, where a cop is investigating a series of serial murders all around Romania, and is hampered by the fact that the regime doesn't want to admit there's a serial killer on the loose, so they're pretending that it's a series of bear attacks. And the 2 plots gradually wind their way together to a really kind of blockbuster, very thrilling set piece at the end that I just loved. It's terrific. It's a really great look at while remaining kind of whimsical and funny at times, a really great look inside the world of the authoritarian regime. The title comes from the fact that the girl is very artistic. She likes to draw pictures. She draws a picture of an astronaut and she calls it an astronaut, which gets her in trouble because she didn't call her cosmonaut. Um, and the entire bear attack thing is just fascinating because, you know, the cop who's investigated, who like was there when they cooked up the story about it being bear attacks, he's talking to people who helped invent the story, and they have all begun believing that it's actually bear attacks. It's a really wild, very very quick, very fun, very interesting read, and a great look inside what life would have been like in Romania in 1989.
I have just been seeing this book everywhere. I've been reading lots of amazing reviews of it and seeing it everywhere, and I'm in love with that jacket. I think it's just amazing,
It's such a great cover.
amazing jacket cover. I mean, I alternate, but I'm fascinated by the. I haven't read it yet, but I keep seeing it, and it's on my list, and I'm fascinated to read about it because I worked with a woman who grew up in that regime. And yeah, and it was really interesting because she was able to study, like, engineering, and then she found her way over to the US at a certain point. But she talked a lot about what it was like sort of growing up there. But the funniest thing to me is that her mother got very upset when she left and came to the United States, and her mother was like, "You can't go there. It's too it's too dangerous. People people shoot each other on the streets there." So that was really an eye opener on a lot of levels, but I've been fascinated ever since about, you know, the inner workings because you don't see it that often, you know. So such an interesting idea and premise. I'm really excited to read it.
The set piece it ends with is not actual history, but it's a very exciting set piece at the end anyway. So yeah.
Okay, even better. Thank you, Joe. All right, Tom, what's your first book?
So my first book reflects, you mentioned this is a comforting, warm book space. So my first book is a comforting, warm book space. Matt Haig's Midnight Train. So this is out yesterday. In one of our obviously one of our biggest books of the year. We say this is in the it's in the Midnight Library the universe of the Midnight Library. Not a sequel, but related. And of course, if you love Midnight Library, if you're one of the 10 million people who love the Midnight Library, it's likely that you will love the Midnight Train. So the Midnight Train we follow Wilbur, who is at the end of his life. He's in his late 80s. And like a lot of us, he would like to relive certain moments in his life, certain things that he did that he regrets. And so on the train, he is given the opportunity to see his life, you know, come back to him. He can see moments in his life, especially the moment that the best days of his life were with Maggie, who was the love of his life. But on their honeymoon in Venice, that's when things started to go wrong in his life. And so he'd like to go back and live differently, those moments. Um, so it's definitely like he's well aware that we are in It's a Wonderful Life territory, a Christmas Carol territory. Um, and Matt's very playful in all things, but also very like in everything all of his novels and all of his work, he's very unafraid to show emotion, and then that comes through here. It's warm, it's empathetic, um, filled with life lessons. um, it's vintage Matt Haig, really wonderful. The New York Times had just published a great review that gets it right. Just as Wilbur wants to get Maggie, the newlywed version of her, before the wealth and disappointment, many of us just want to get whisked away by a good yarn. This one does the trick. Some will accuse Haig of cashing in on a proven concept. To quote Mel Robbins, let them. If you enjoy the midnight experience, climb aboard. If not, books are like trains. There's one every hour. Um, but I think that I absolutely, if you love the Midnight Library, you'll love the Midnight Train.
I mean, I don't. There aren't. Is there anybody who didn't love the Midnight Library? I mean,
I
I
don't think
don't.
so.
I can't tell you how many times I had people come up to me in the store and just rave about how meaningful it was for them and
Yeah,
how much of a difference. And one young woman one time just told me this book just changed my life. And so at that, what else do you want from a book? I mean,
right. Yeah, yeah, it's what we dream of from a book, from
yeah,
the
yeah,
power of a book. But I
yeah.
know I have the same experience with people talking about the book in terms of changing their life. And it was one of those books that just got deep into the culture and all
It
kinds of
really
reading
worked.
into it.
Yeah. And then there was a bunch of sort of, as happens in publishing all the time, everybody was like, okay, now we all are going to do a version of the Midnight Library.
Mhm.
That's what happens in publishing. But none of them worked like that one, you know?
Right.
So, so I'm sure this will have, you know, the same type of following.
I think
It's
so. Yeah.
got his finger on that pulse, you know? So
Yep.
thank you, Tom. Joe?
Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about is Boss Lincoln, and it's the Partisan Life of Abraham Lincoln. This is from our terrific history editor, Steve Foreman, who specializes in American history and has like a closet full of Pulitzers in his office. Um, so the short version of this is it's finally like an original take on Abraham Lincoln because there's no shortage of Lincoln books, obviously. This is about his role as a master politician. At times quite an effectively cutthroat one. He came up as a Whig in the then really rough and tumble world of 1830s Illinois politics. Yes, Illinois politics were ever thus. It's not a new thing for the 20th century. And from this, he like helped build the Republican Party into a major force. He this sort of end result made him much more effective as a commander in chief and as president. Um, he was he was just a good retail politician. One thing he was really great at was vote counting. He kept careful hand tallies. One of his first romantic moves toward Mary Todd was to hand him one of his handwritten vote tallies because she was a politics fan herself. Um, he could also be just a very deft and very manipulative when he wanted to be. He was also very decisive, and he always had the final word. And so what's kind of interesting is this a little bit takes the team of rivals view of things to task. It basically is saying it was a little bit more of a one-man show than that book indicated. And the author points out that even Gettysburg was like partly a partisan exhortation to fight at the polls as well as on the battlefields. And so his acumen set the table for the ultimate Union victory and allowed for emancipation as well. So it's really just a very different take on him on Lincoln, and I found it really fascinating.
It's true that there's no shortage of books on Lincoln. So I think I mean it's an audience of the readers of history of this particular history, and fans are gonna be attracted regardless. But it's great when there's just sort of a different aspect, and I think this way in to it, to Lincoln, focusing on the politics of the time and like politics in general instead of like Lincoln, the symbol, you know, makes it really interesting and, you know, what people want to read about now, I think.
Yeah, I mean the title, as it suggests, it's sort of saying that he could be as effective as say a Tammany boss when he wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is not, you know, hasn't been the gospel on Lincoln, you know, but we go on, we find out more. So thank you, Joe. All right. Back to you, Tom.
All right. So my next book is Dolly All the Time by Annabel Monaghan, which we will all get a taste of Annabel Monaghan at the store on Sunday.
That's right.
She is, as you see there, the June Good Morning America pick, which they announced yesterday. And she's a real homegrown Putnam success. We started publishing her maybe 4 years ago with Nora Goes Off Script. And with each book, her fan base grows, and this should be her biggest book yet. And if you haven't experienced her in person, she's just such a lovely, lovely author to spend time with. So she'll be great on Sunday. So it's the story of Dolly Brick, who is very much like a problem solver. She gets things done. She's returns home to her home in Rhode Island because her to take care of her dad and her brother who are trying to save the family home. But while being home in Rhode Island, she meets Stuart Whitfield, who, as we say here, an annoyingly handsome scion of the Whitfield family. And though she tries to avoid, falling for him, it seems inevitable this is going to happen. Um, so the tropes, everyone wants to know about the tropes in every romance. The tropes here are fake dating, rich versus poor, the billionaire, of course, fish out of water, and afraid to commit. So, uh, so that's what you have here. It's a paperback original. Will be a big bestseller. You see that I talked about Carly Fortune a couple of weeks ago, or when I was last on, and we have a great quote from her that's on the cover. She says, "A luminous story of love, duty, and the tension between the two. Dolly All the Time is less like a novel and more like a place I never wanted to leave. This might be my new favorite." And I'll say that Annabel Monaghan, among all of my romance, there's certain Emily Henry stands above all in the romance writers that I sell, but for indie bookstores, I would say Annabel Monaghan is just an absolute favorite, very high among the writers that we publish. So that's Dolly All the Time.
She is an indie favorite, and I love an indie favorite. I mean, it's great when everybody everywhere knows everything, but I always like the indies. I'm obviously a soft spot. It's funny you should mention the tropes because I'm like always trying to keep up with I like fake dating. I didn't. I mean, I that was the last one that
Yeah.
I learned about was
I'm
fake.
always trying to keep up with the tropes too, and
Yeah.
I cannot. I'm always
Well,
learning new.
there's more,
Yeah.
there's always more. They're the standard enemies to lovers, but then, like, okay, fake dating. All right. It's actually been around. I just don't think it was called that. It's
Yeah,
just,
exactly. I mean, none of these things are brand new, but we have names for them.
right.
Very
I mean, if you look at old, like, Doris Day, Rock Hudson movies, like, they're all there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sunday at 3 p.m., you can come see Annabelle in person. So thank you, Tom. Joe.
Okay, so I'm going to move from American history to ancient history with Sparta by Andrew Bayliss. Sparta has been famed for thousands of years as the great warrior society. Bayliss here has worked with historical records and archaeological evidence to sort Sparta's rise from like an obscure hamlet in the Peloponnese to the foremost military power of ancient Greece. He provides tremendous detail of like these incredibly disciplined warriors. They had insane training routines, their dietary habits, you name it. He goes through it all. And he also details Sparta's most impressive military battles, including its fight against Xerxes, the sort of long odds battle there, and then its surprising downfall, which he links to its dependency on slaves. It's a really fascinating look. It's very accessible. It's meant for a general audience. It is a fun read, and I think it is also meant to sort of insert itself with this moment where I think sort of the manosphere and this far right has developed a fascination with Sparta, and it sort of, I think, undermines what a lot of their views of it would be. Because, as I said, like the downfall coming from a reliance on slaves and that sort of thing really kind of works against the narrative that's been told about it. So it's a really, again, fascinating, great ancient history for the general reader.
This is it is interesting that you noticed an uptick in books and studies about Stoicism. That is like huge and has been going on in the manosphere. Everybody gets a book on Stoicism for graduation or whatever.
Yes.
And then, but Sparta also, this type of warrior ethos. So it's fascinating. And yeah, slaves are the downfall. Uh-huh. That's right.
Yeah, well, the power that defeated them, what they did was they liberated the slaves, and from
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
so
Super interesting. Great read. Thank you, Joe. Tom.
Okay, summer reading. Cannot think of a better summer reading book than Michelle Honeyman's Bug Hollow, which I talked about throughout last year. And now, and I love, like, this doesn't happen in publishing. I feel like we used to reinvent books in paperback with new covers, reimagining how we present them a lot more than we do now. But here we have, the hardcover had I think especially if you've read the book, it was a fantastic cover, captured a lot about the time and place of the book. But it's a California book, and this new paperback cover is fantastic. So it's the story of the Samuelson family over decades, and we follow the in the first chapter, the son of the family, the son and the brother, heads up north to Northern California before going away to college, and there's a tragedy with him. And we follow the ripple effects of that tragedy in this family with the parents, the brothers and sisters. We follow them over the next 30 years. But what I always say about this book is that in other hands, this could be a 500-page saga of the family. But Michelle Hanavin is just a master of economy and storytelling. She doesn't need that many pages to tell such a big story. She started this book as she didn't necessarily know she was writing a novel. She started it as she would write stories and about this family. And slowly but surely, as she showed it to writer friends, her editor, her agent, they were like, Michelle, you have a novel here. And you can feel both things. You can feel the story element, but also how all the pieces fit together. I love a book where the reader has to do a little bit of work. So you're reading about one of the characters, you're reading through the perspective of one of the characters, and then in the next chapter, you suddenly are in a different perspective, and so you have to work out how we got there and how this relates to what you just read. But the pieces fit together beautifully. So Michelle Hunavin has been writing for 30 years or more. She's been nominated for all the prizes. I think of her as, she's truly a master, uh, prose stylist. Just has never gotten the recognition that she deserves. And so finally, it feels like it's coming here with Bug Hollow. Got amazing reviews. Ron Charles, back when he was with the Washington Post only a short time ago, he ends his review by saying, right down to its final moments, Hunavin casually offers up little revelations that crunch as sweet and tart as pomegranate seeds. It is a very satisfying read, perfect for summer. Also a tribute to Altadena. All of her books are set in Altadena, one way or another. And of course, she lives in Altadena. And, there's so many things to recommend this book in paperback. Pick it up. You will absolutely, thoroughly enjoy it.
How could I possibly add to that?
Mm.
Tom, I just do want to say that you've been such a champion of Michelle's books always, and you've certainly brought them to me before. Take a look at this, make sure you do that local aspect of it. I think I, it's great for me. I love when writers write about the little areas.
Yeah,
Like.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's great, and they're sort of underrepresented, but they have their own culture. Anyway, it's great, and this is such a warm and a wonderful book. And I do want to also point out that we didn't plan it this way to have like a Joe Tom point counterpoint thing. It's like Joe is like Lincoln,
I
and
know. I was
Oh, just wait for the next one.
right. I know, because often I will bring some of these heavier, darker books. That's what I love to do. But today seems to be all brightness, light.
I know it's really, but it's very funny how we've like the swing. I love it. Perfect. We didn't plan it. We're
No.
not wearing the same clothes on purpose. Okay. I don't. Is this our third book, or are we at the bonus book? Or I don't even know
We're
where
at
we
the
are.
bonus
This is the bonus.
Are we on the bonus book already? Well,
Yeah.
you guys are so efficient. Okay. Normally everybody has 3 books that they talk about, but we have, because it's just the 2 of you, we have room for a bonus book from each of you, which is very exciting. And so, okay, what's your last one, the big
Let's see
finish,
how we
Joe?
counterpoint this
So
time.
after that cozy getaway, I send you to the Eastern Front. So Nick Lloyd is this incredible British historian, and our editor-in-chief brought in these books. This is the most recent of the 2 thus far. So Winston Churchill singled out the Eastern Front as the single most catastrophic military event in world history to the time that he said that. But his was kind of a minority opinion because it's long been overshadowed by the terrible long stalemate on the Western Front. I'm talking about World War I, by the way, the Great War. So this is the first history of the fight on the Eastern Front in 50 years. And in many ways, it's I love the Western Front as well. I will hold that up in a minute, but this is even more readable and engaging than the first volume, partly because the fighting on the Eastern Front was way more kinetic and fluid. It wasn't just the trench warfare where nothing moved for literally years on end. And it was also the site of the conflagration that ultimately consumed 3 entire empires. Lloyd is he's an engaging and fascinating writer of military history. I have a passing interest in military history. I'm not like a West Point grad type or something like that, but I found these very readable and very interesting. And it's got all the bells and whistles you would also want from a history. So it's got maps, photos, a glossary, which is helpful, and even I think most helpful, the cast of characters, because there are a good number of generals involved. So, and the first book to mention was the Western Front, and that really was a terrific read as well. And it is a record of that just dreadful grinding trench warfare, and it's kind of interesting because the take that Lloyd was presenting is that it's always been kind of thought, as far as the Western Front goes, that this was the fault of the generals, that they just kept doing the same thing over and over again with no result, and it was their mistake, and that he's arguing that that's not necessarily the case. And I finished it and thought it was this incredibly compelling read, really fascinating history, and I'm like, yeah, it was the general's fault. So. And so there will be a 3rd volume on the Middle East front, so it'll have like the Lawrence of Arabia of it all, and that good stuff too. So that's coming at some point. But these are big honking volumes, so I'm sure he's still working on it. So
Wow, fascinating. I'm gonna have to get this for Gabe, obviously. This is right up his alley. So yeah, thank you for the nice light finish.
yes, right, yeah.
But really, and we're seeing some really interesting, like Tom Hanks has this World War II, this like sweeping documentary coming. But I feel like we've been
Wait, there
seeing.
was a World War II? Oh, sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah, I know.
So it wasn't a happy ending on this book after all. Okay, I see.
Gotta always have a war going, but both World War I and II. I mean, of course, it's really funny because I could see it, the young people who come into the store and the young men, or even kids, actually, younger boys, and they want to read war books, and they want to read about World War I, World War II. Usually it's World War II, but I've noticed a stronger interest in World War I from younger readers lately.
That's not. I thought it was people in my age group with like dandruff-laden cardigans. I'm thrilled to hear that it's.
No, it's true. And you kind of struggle sometimes because they're really young and you're like, okay, you're 9. I don't know about this. But they are, and they are interested in it, and they do read them. And I'm always looking for, good. This is for a little bit of an older reader, obviously, but not old reader. Like, I think this is a good book for somebody who's for a younger person, like a teen. I think would work, and so, and there is an interest. So, yeah. All right, thank you, Joe. I can't wait.
Yes. I will I will bring us home with a wonderful, wonderful literary collection. That's Ruth Ozecki's The Typing Lady and Other Fictions. So Ruth Ozecki is one of my favorite writers, period. She and her novel A Tale for the Time Being, really in my top 5. I mean, I adore that book, and if you haven't read A Tale for the Time Being, you must read that novel. Um, and I never knew she's never published short stories in book form before, and I honestly never knew she wrote short fiction. So it was a delight to find we were publishing a collection of her stories. And so Ruth Ozecki, always playful, is definitely playing around here with the form. So we meet the typing lady at the very beginning in the first story, and the typing lady may be Ruth Ozecki, or it may be a writer much like Ruth Ozecki. As we proceed to in this collection, we meet um, a ghost who's roaming the woods outside of his wife's home. We meet I love this story. There's a story about a dead beat poet who hijacks the mind of a publishing assistant during a sales meeting and then starts railing about the state of publishing today. So there are always other presences. There are ghosts in Ruth's fiction. Also here writing, there's typewriters, letters, manuscripts, all kinds of disappearing ink, all kinds of ways we use language, tell stories, storytelling. All of our books are just about storytelling. I mean, to me, there's a little bit of Borges in this collection, but the most accessible Borges you've ever read. I mean, she's just so much fun and so refreshing, and I will read and love anything she writes. And some of these stories have been published before in different journals, but at least 5 of them have never been published before. And then even the ones which have been published, in journals, she's reworked, um, edited, changed to make a more cohesive whole. And I should also say this is not out yet. It's out next Tuesday, so it's a pre-order. But if you've ever experienced Ruth Ozecki's work, you know you want this book. And if you haven't experienced her, start with this one. Start with A Tale for the Time Being. Start with My Year of Meats. Start anywhere, and you'll be hooked. So that's Ruth Ozecki's The Typing Lady and Other Fictions.
My Year of Meats. It's just, I love that title.
Yeah.
I'm really on a short story bender lately,
Yes,
and I'm super excited about this. I don't have this. I'm really excited
I will
to
get it
read
to
this.
you
Tom's the best. But
immediately.
you know what? This kicked me off with another one of your books, Tom, which was the Penguin International Book of
Oh,
Short
that's right.
Fiction, which is one of the best. That I'm blown away by this giant book of international short stories, and as Tom knows, because I told him that I can't believe I've never read this author or that author, and then I've subsequently recommended it to other people, the authors. And anyway, that sort of sent me off. And there's so much great short fiction, short stories collections out right now. We talked about the Julie Schumacher Patient Female, which is an amazing, incredible book from Milkweed. Just, it's having like a bit of a renaissance, short stories, which I'm super excited about, because it's very hard to write very good short stories. People don't, they think because it's shorter it's easier, but it's not. It's harder. And
Great.
to get a whole collection that is all good is harder still. but short attention spans, being what they are, I don't know, whatever gets you there, right? But
Exactly.
the short stories are amazing. They're so
And I
good.
was and I was just so surprised that I just didn't know Ruth Ozeki wrote short stories. And
Right.
they're good as they are. No, I mean, no surprise. But you're right. It's a completely different form. And
Yeah.
later this summer, we just did Lauren Groff. That was a
Right.
collection of stories. And then later this summer, another author who I love, who I didn't know wrote short fiction, Sigrid Nunez, has a collection
Right.
coming. So
I imagine, just from my own experience, that if you sort of like dig not very far under the surface of novelist, you'll find,
yeah,
you'll find quite a few short stories.
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. Well, that is a great book. Thank you. And a great note to end on. And I am so excited that the two of you were here doing a point counterpoint, because that is, no, it
I
is.
love it.
It just really demonstrates the scope of publishing and the diversity and what's out there, and the fact that there is absolutely something for everybody. And we had something for everybody today. And you both brought it, for which I am very grateful. And I'm sure everybody who's watching this is grateful as well. So I want to thank you again, Tom Benton from Penguin and Joe Murphy from W.W. Norton. Thank you to Joey, who's behind the scenes putting up all the great covers and posting the links that you can click on later. And thanks to everybody for watching today. And just want to remind you again that we will be back next week. We will have Lisa C. next week, and we will be talking to her. And that is going to be a delightful Elevenses. So Daughters of the Sun and Moon is her new forthcoming book, and she is going to be at the store as well. So make sure you tune in for that. And next Thursday, a week from Thursday, June 4th, in person, reps, publishers reps with actual books in their hands. So,
And giveaways.
and giveaways, raffle prizes
Mhm.
and giveaways, lots of giveaways. Who doesn't love that? So make sure you come out for that. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next week. And happy reading in the meantime.
Thank you.